Hi, I'm Mike from 1A Auto. We've been selling auto parts for over 30 years. We're dedicated to delivering quality auto parts, expert customer service, fast and free shipping, all backed by our 100% satisfaction guarantee. We've created thousands of videos to help you install our parts with confidence, and that saves you time and money. So visit us at 1aauto.com, your trusted source for quality auto parts.
In this video, we're going to be working with our 1996 Jeep Cherokee. We're going to show you how to remove and replace the alternator on a 6-cylinder or 4.0 liter engine. This is going to be similar to a lot of the 4-liter Jeeps, some available in Wranglers, Grand Cherokees, and other vehicles. It'll be pretty much the same process. If you like this video, please click subscribe. We have a ton more information on this truck as well as many other makes and models. And if you need this part for your vehicle, you can follow the link down in the description over to 1aauto.com. Here are the items you'll need for this repair. Before working on the alternator, we'll disconnect the battery, starting with the negative side and then the positive. All we need is a 13mm wrench. Loosen up the clamp and work it off of the battery post. Make sure you set it somewhere where it's not going to move and land back on the battery. This truck shouldn't be double nutted, but somebody had a power accessory on here before. So we'll just loosen up the inner nut if we can. Same thing, we'll set that off to the side to isolate it. Now this vehicle is missing the belt path diagram. Normally it would be under the hood or up here on the cowl somewhere. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw my own on it. We'll start up top with the AC pulley. The belt then goes down to the bottom to our alternator. We have our fan pulley right in the middle and to the inside of them. All the way down at the bottom, we have our crank pulley, which will make larger than the rest. We then have our water pump pulley. Our power steering pump pulley up here at the top right, and down below our power steering pump and kind of close to the water pump we have our tensioner pulley. So now we'll draw the belt, which goes over our AC, under our alternator, up over the fan pulley here, down and around the crank pulley. Crank pulley comes up and goes over the tensioner, under the power steering, around the power steering. I've drawn this a little tight here. Under the water pump and back up over to our AC pulley. So now we have a good path of where it goes. We can be confident removing our belt that will make sure it goes back in the exact same path. Using a 15mm wrench, we'll loosen the bolt at the center of our tensioner pulley. Do not remove this fully. Just loosen it up enough that when we adjust the tension, the pulley will move freely. Should only take a couple of turns. If your vehicle's been run recently, be careful because this housing up here is very hot. Using a 15mm socket, ratchet, and extension, we'll loosen this tensioner bolt here until we can remove our belt. You can see as we loosen it, it moves our pulley down, taking pressure off of our serpentine belt. Once the tension's off, it's easiest to remove the belt from a smooth pulley, like our water pump pulley here. So we'll slide the belt off of it. And I like to remove it fully just to make sure that it's out of our way when we're working. Remove the top bolt from the alternator with a 15mm socket and ratchet, as well as a wrench on the backside to keep the nut in place. Remove the bolt from the top of the alternator. We're using a lift, but this job can easily be done in the driveway on a jack and jack stands, or if your vehicle's nice and high like this one, you may even be able to do it with the weight of the vehicle on the tires. Using a 10mm socket and ratchet, we'll remove the nut for the power wire to the alternator. It's at the top here. Once the nut's off, remove the power wire from the stud of the alternator. Remove the two 10mm at the bottom of the alternator for the voltage regulator. Remove the two 7mm nuts at the top of the studs for the voltage regulator. Do that with a 7mm socket and ratchet. Then remove the voltage regulator from the back of the alternator. Remove the 15mm bolt at the bottom of the alternator with a socket and ratchet. Remove these four 15mm if you need a little extra room to get the alternator out of the vehicle. Sometimes they will just sneak out of the bracket here, but ours is a little stuck, so we're going to pull that off to make it easier to remove. Remove the bracket. Now in models with the mechanical fan, you may have to remove the battery. It's 13mm nuts on the hold downs at the top. Remove the hold down. Remove the battery from the vehicle. Remove the three 15mm nuts at the bottom of the battery tray. Our first nut broke off, so we'll spray the others with some penetrating oil to help free them up. All of our hardware in the battery tray is broken off, so we'll have to find another way to secure it when it goes back in. Hopefully yours came out normally. We'll remove ours. There's a sensor at the bottom here that we'll have to disconnect to get our battery tray out. Remove the battery tray. And remove the alternator. Reinstall your alternator into the bracket. Reinstall the plate that goes in front of the alternator bracket. We'll start the three 15mm nuts on there by hand to keep the bracket lined up. There's also the shortest of the three 15mm bolts that goes in the hole to the side of the bottom alternator hole. And the second longest of the three 15mm bolts will go into the bottom hole. Before tightening any of the bolts at the bottom, we'll also have to line up our top bolt, which is the longest of all of them. We'll start that 15mm nut on the back as well. Since everything's lined up, we can go ahead and tighten this bolt up while we're right here with our 15mm socket, ratchet, and wrench. Now you can tighten up the remaining 15mm hardware. Reinstall the junction block for the voltage regulator. We'll start with the two 7mm nuts on the terminals. Tighten them down with a 10mm socket and ratchet. Reinstall the power cable to the alternator onto its stud. Start the 10mm nut and then tighten it down with your socket and ratchet. Reinstall the electrical connector at the bottom of the battery tray. Reinstall the battery tray over the studs. Ours broke off while we were removing our alternator, so we're going to have to find another way to attach it, but you should be able to just reinstall the 15mm nuts you removed. Reinstall the battery into the tray. Reinstall the hold down. Once your hold down studs are through, reinstall the two 13mm nuts. Tighten down the two 13mm nuts on your hold down with a socket and ratchet. Be sure to tighten these down only until the battery is snug. If you go too tight, you risk cracking the case on the battery. Install your belt, starting around the crank pulley at the bottom. The right side goes over the fan pulley. Belt goes over the fan pulley, under the alternator, over the AC compressor, under the water pump pulley, over the power steering pulley, and over the belt tensioner as well. It may be easier to go over the belt tensioner and around the power steering pump before going under the water pump pulley in the same way we removed it. With a new belt, you may have to loosen up the tensioner some more. Tighten the tensioner bolt with your 15mm socket, ratchet, and extension. Feel the belt to make sure that it's on there snug with a little bit of flex. If you have it on there too tight, it'll break. Too loose, and it won't turn the pulleys properly. So you may have to make an adjustment after you get the vehicle running again. Before running the engine, after you've tightened down the tensioner, make sure you tighten down that center 15mm bolt on the tensioner pulley. Reconnect the positive side of your battery first. Tighten it down with the 13mm wrench. Once that's on, you can install the ground and tighten that up as well.
Thanks for watching. Visit us at oneauto.com for quality auto parts, fast and free shipping, and the best customer service in the industry.